This is Eagle Freedom Presents Showtime.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Here's your host, Deston Rogers.
All right, and welcome to another episode of Eagle Freedom Presents. I am your host, Deston Rogers. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I am very honored to have my guest with me today. You know, when I first sat down and actually thought about doing a podcast, and this was years ago, the first person that actually came to my mind is the guest that I have for you today. And matter of fact, I remember when I thought about this, I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Would you mind being on my podcast? And without hesitation, she said yes. Unbeknownst to her, it was going to take years for that to happen, and years for me to actually get to this point. So let me tell you about my guest. She's just incredible. She has spent over 25 years helping people turn their deepest struggles into their greatest strengths, from overcoming homelessness to building a multi-million-dollar business and empowering thousands of entrepreneurs. Our guest lives out her message that you can overcome any struggle and achieve your God-given destiny. I like that word. She is a certified coach, a sought-after speaker, and the creator of the Maximize Life Framework. Would you please join me in welcoming from Florida, the amazing Maxandra Desrosiers. Hello, Maxandra.
Wow. Thank you. Congratulations. And here we are. This is awesome.
It is so crazy. Like I said, I remember exactly where I was. I was standing out in the front yard where I was living. And I said, I got to get a hold of Maxandra. And I reached out to you and I told you what I was going to do. And without hesitation, you did. You said, yeah, that'd be great. Just let me know when you're going to do this. I just didn't tell you that it was going to be years down the road, but here we are.
You know, we have dreams and we have visions. And, you know, as long as we follow through, the timing is always perfect. So this is perfect timing right now. And I really believe that everything has been written and it happens when it's supposed to happen. So that's why I'm never in a rush, because timing is perfect. And I believe you're ready for it now to bring your baby out in the world.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Maxandra and I, we were just talking about, it's been probably about, I don't know, 7, 8, maybe 9 years since we've known each other. And for my listening audience, I want you to take some time. And if you've got to go back later and re-listen to this, I encourage you to do that, because Maxandra's story is one that truly reflects our mantra of rise, inspire, and overcome. So, Maxandra, if we can, where I really like to start is, in order to get to where you are now, you had to start from where you were. The journey began back home. So can you tell everybody about your journey and where it began?
Absolutely. I mean, I was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Um, you know, I grew up in the city of Haiti, went to school there. But at the age of 13, I moved here to the US. My brothers were murdered. Two brothers were murdered. At the time, Haiti was having a lot of turmoil like they're having now. And my mom made a decision to send me here to the US. We used to travel to the US during the summer, to Miami. And, you know, we would travel. My father would travel not only to the US, to Canada, because he owned a jewelry store in Haiti. So he would travel all across in the Caribbean to buy gold, to buy silver, buy different jewelry, because they would make things from scratch. And he had gold dealers in Texas that he would come and meet with and do all of that. So, you know, business was great. And of course, after my brothers were murdered, life just changed just like that. Um, and my mom decided, okay, what am I going to do? There's no way I can take care of you and your sister. So I'm going to have to send you to the US. And I think also it was based on fear as well. because I would stay with my dad a lot. I was always with my brothers. As a matter of fact, they were on their way to pick me up the night that they were murdered. Have I had been with them, I would have also been gone as well, because everybody that was in that car died that night. It was five of them. And so I came here to the US without parents. At 13, I stayed with a family member, graduated high school very early. I was 16 when I left high school, and then I was on my own. I became homeless at 16. I remember sleeping on a friend's floor at 16 years old, figuring it out and taking on all this responsibility that, I mean, for your listeners that have children, you have high school students graduating, they're looking into college, and, the parents are traveling with them saying, okay, where are we going to go? We're looking in different universities. But that wasn't my story. I was on my own. Okay, so now I have to figure out where I'm going to stay, how I'm going to eat, what I'm going to do with my life. And education is such a big part. Um, Growing up in Haiti, having education, my father sacrificed so much to send us to private school. I went to an all girls Catholic Canadian school in Haiti. And, that was already instilled in me as well. So for me, even after high school, although I was struggling, I was homeless, I would count pennies to take the bus to go take my classes. I got a scholarship for school for the first 2 years, but they wouldn't give it to me because I was an out of state student, right? And life happens. And I tell people all the time, sometimes we're planning so much for the future, not realizing that, life is so precious. Anything can change at a drop, you know, just like that. There's a training I used to do years ago. And, it was called Just Like That, for people to wake up and be present in their lives right now, and to realize who they are, where they are, and how they can really move past whatever they're facing, because that's what I had to do at 16. And there's nothing else. I mean, everything is in front of you. What do? You're 16, you're homeless. I don't have a job. I don't have a career. I don't have mom. I don't have dad. I don't have anyone that I can call to provide for me. What do you do when you're faced with the impossible? And that's where I was.
So obviously, at some point in this, you had to learn or lean into a lot of faith to get you through what you were going through. I mean, a lot of people, you think a 16-year-old now is, they're worried about whether or not they're going to have, a new iPhone or a new gadget or something like that. But at 16, you weren't faced with those kind of problems. You were faced with real life problems just to survive throughout the day, correct?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer, because I coach a lot of young teenagers as well, and I speak to the youth. And I'm a big believer there is a foundation as a kid is born. I would say up until 12, 13 years old. Obviously, you continue, but that foundation, that window between birth and 12, 13, I think is so very important for a child. And the reason why I say that is because I'm looking at my life, right? Um, Watching how my dad was someone who always had his businesses, and I was around that because after my mom and my dad separated, I went to live with my dad because he was the one with the money. He was the one who lived close to the schools as well, that I could get taken to school. But one of the things that was very important for my father was that I would go with him to the office and see what he does. And I was very involved, very young. I think I was 6, 7 years old. I would be with him at his shop, talking to customers, counting money. seeing all the buses, he called them buses, all the guys who were the jeweler makers, watching them making the jewelry. And one scene that I can remember is that probably around 7, 8 years old, my father came one time and said, "What do you want for Christmas?" I told him I wanted $1,000. He never said no. He said, "Okay," and nothing else. Well, we weren't allowed to watch television every single day growing up. TV was only on Saturday for a few hours. That's it. It's like for 2 hours, we were okay to watch television. And Saturday morning, I was always looking forward to that. And Saturday morning, early, like 5 a.m., he woke me up and said, "Get ready. We're going to the store today. I'm going to leave. And then when I come back, we're going to go to the store." And I said, "Why?" He said, "You want $1,000 for Christmas." So every Saturday, I would go to the store with him every Saturday, and I would go to the store and work. And Christmas came, he gave me that $1,000, and he also gave me a piggy bank. And then he had asked me, "What do you want to do with that $1,000?" I said, "Well, I wanted to go shop at the mall." At the time, in Haiti, the mall was Accra. I said, "I want to go to the mall and shop." So when he gave me that $1,000, I changed my mind because I had worked so hard and I gave up for a child, sacrificing my Saturday when it's the only time I have to hang out with friends and to watch television. And now I'm going to work with him. And this happened for months, right? So I learned, the value of when it comes to sacrifice, to working hard. Also, he gave me that piggy bank. I didn't want to spend the money like that anymore, of saving. I remember him coming back to me asking me to borrow money. He didn't need the money. Now I know that. But I was so eager. He taught me the value of sharing, the value of giving, and then he gave it back. And then whenever I would go and be with my mom, which sometimes would be, on the holidays, long weekends, during the summer, my mom accepted Christ when I was in her stomach because she had a difficult pregnancy with me. And that's where faith came in at very young. I saw my mom had very little because she was no longer with my dad, and they were still trying to see how they can build a friendship. And that hadn't happened yet because they had separated. So my father was just, they weren't friendly at the time. But I would go be with my mother and I would watch her in prayer, right? I remember one time specifically, my mom had nothing in the house, and she had adopted two of her sister's kids because her sister had passed away. And she had nothing, no food, nothing. And she went into prayer, and somehow the neighbor came in and said, "I cook and I brought you food," right? My mom would always talk about prayer. She would always talk about fasting. She would always talk, how God can provide. That was who she leaned on. So I say all this to say, when it was time that I was here at 13 years old, because the Bible said that God orders our step. Yes, I was 13. Yes, I was homeless at 16. But what came into play was faith, was believing that God will provide, because I was around that since I was young. I was also around all the people where I knew how blessed I was. There was a sense of gratitude because I saw what my father was able to provide for us. And I saw how I would be with my mother in the love and in the nurturing that she gave. So for me, I always felt blessed. Well, those are the same attribute that I brought. Although I was homeless, I was sleeping on a friend's floor. I never once complained. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. I was very grateful and felt, "God, thank you for giving me a floor to sleep in because I can be under a highway. I can be in the street." Because when I came here and I stayed with my family member for 3 years, we would feed the homeless around Thanksgiving. And we would go under the highways and bring food. We will spend, time cooking. And our Thanksgiving every year for 3 years was every morning on Thanksgiving Day early, we would go feed the homeless. So for me, the fact that I had my friend's floor, that was a blessing. So I never saw it as, oh my God, I'm complaining. It was, okay, God, what do I do now? What do I do? So I did what I should be doing, which is, okay, you know, I'm going to look in the newspaper to see who's hiring. Okay. I'm going to save money because this situation is not permanent. Never once did I complain. I was just so happy that I had a friend that would take me in to sleep on her floor. And she had just gotten the apartment and she had no furniture in the living room. She only had a bedroom furniture. She said, Maxandra, you can sleep. I'll give you comforters. You can sleep in the living room. And for me, it was, I have a roof over my head. It's not, I'm sleeping on the floor. Why is this happening to me? My question always in my life, whenever I face adversity, right? Um, Whenever I face trials, why not me? Because so many people around us, we know face the same things. And some of them, if not worse, why not me?
Right. Yeah. And you know what's really interesting, Maxandra, as you were talking about this and the fact that your parents had separated, but even though they had separated at an early age, you learned valuable lessons from each of them
Absolutely.
independently. The finance part from your dad, which was really interesting because originally you wanted the money, you wanted $1,000, you wanted to go to a mall, but you also realized that I worked really hard for this money, and you learned that letting go of it so fast and going to spend it just to go spend it wasn't wise because you worked so hard and you didn't want to lose it. And at the same time, when you're going to live with your mom and your mom instilled in you the belief that she became a believer and instilled that in you, and both of those combined together are what helped you and guided you when you were sleeping on the floor in Florida.
Absolutely. And my mom was very poor, right? Um, I had two different lives, right? Whenever I would go to my mom, um, she had gotten a job after leaving my dad at a factory, and the factory closed. And pretty much she lived by faith, right? Because we're living in a country where jobs don't come around so easily. For people who have so many degrees, you have to be well connected. Imagine for someone who does not have that. And then I have my father, who's a businessman, right? He's surrounded with people who are in power in the country, um, whether in government, whether in business. He's surrounded by that. I'm getting a driver to take me to school. We have people who work in the house, right? Whether it's maid, drivers, we have all that. I'm in private school. My father had this vision for all his children, but yet there are a lot of things that I'm also seeing as well, because I was one of those kids that asked questions. And I have to say, my father was always open in regards to talking about business, telling me that I can do anything. If my dad asked me today, what do you want to be? If I said I want to be a lawyer today, you know how kids, we change our minds all the time, right? He'll say, okay, go to law school and then open your law firm. If I said I want to be a doctor, he's like, okay, you're gonna go to medical school and then you're gonna go and open your own medical center. I remember one time I said I want to be a stewardess. She's like, okay, so now you're gonna be working for the airlines and then you're gonna train others as well. You can, so it was always about business, right? It was always about business. So for me, when right before graduated high school, I saved money. I went into this printing company and I made cards and I started what you call maximum typing. And I was probably 15 at the time. And I would type because I type really, really fast. So I would type because I owned a typewriter and that's all I did all day. In high school, I took typing after school. In the work program, I took typing, so I typed really fast. And I would type, for college students. Back then we didn't have the computers and all of that. It was a typewriter, right?
Right.
So I would type for college students and then I would charge them for that. So it came natural to me to, okay, what can I do? And then I would go to the grocery store Sunday morning early and get the Miami Herald newspaper so I can go into the job section. And my friend who invited me to stay on her floor, we did a resume. And then from there, because in high school I would volunteer at the hospital, so I had that as reference. And before, I already had my list of jobs and where I was gonna call by Monday morning, right? And then I started working for temp agencies that would send me here, send me there, send me everywhere, wherever I could go, right? And that's what I would do. And then just put my money together to pay for my classes as well. You know, was it hard? Was it difficult? Absolutely. Were there times? I think when you are in the process as a 13-year-old, I was thinking about survival. So I automatically went into the mindset of I have to survive. I went into the mindset was, you know, what am I gonna do? And I tell people all the time, even now, when I'm when I look back now and I say, wow, God, you've always been present in my life because there's no way a 13-year-old, 16 years old on my own, homeless in the street, that you preserved me and put me around the right people. Because for so many people, that's not the story, right? And we're
Right.
seeing it happening today in 2025, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's prostitution, whether it's all of that. I mean, I remember being out and about. I could be at a bus stop waiting, and somebody would give me a card that they're looking for models. I remember as a young girl, that would happen to me all the time. And I would go home and throw away those cards. Like I would go home and throw away those cards because I would talk to people. They say, oh, no, that's not the type of modeling that they're looking for. I mean, at the bus stop, people were all over. So people are looking for young people to devour. They're looking for young people to take advantage of, right? So for me, I am just so grateful that I was preserved. So I honestly, it is my mission to get out there to talk to young men and young women, whether young or old, because we all go through trials and tribulation, and we can be here for months on this podcast telling you all the trials, all the steps, everything that I've had to go through, all the, failures, the falling down, having to get back up, and then to believe, right? And to not allow life to beat you up. Because that's what happened with a lot of people, that they die with their dreams. It's because life have beat them up so much that they simply give up and they become very passive, where they are no longer a part of their lives. They're not participating in their lives anymore. They become very, very passive, and then they let life happen to them.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is they get to a point like that because, like you said, we've all been there, whether young or
Yes.
old, we've all had those experiences. But it's also at some point learning and recognizing about the environment that you're around, the people that you're associating with. And you were lucky, like you said, you're handed cards for jobs left and right, and maybe somebody who's just desperate that wants something would just jump at the opportunity. I just need to make money. But you were unfortunate enough that you were being watched, you were being guided down the right path. You were being I don't know if protected is the word for it, but you were being protected and guided through the right experiences and the right opportunities to get you to where you needed to be, where you could help others and instill in them the possibilities that they don't see within themselves.
Well, money was never my motivator. You said something very key, and I'm gonna share a story with you to explain to you all the elements that went into effect, right? When I was going through all these difficulties in my life and really not realizing what was happening and not really giving time for being a victim or pity or even being angry at my parents, being angry at my mother, because my mother was the one that made the decision because my father would have never sent me here, right? So I remember one of the jobs that I found, um, I was a part of working for a company. And I remember when they hired me for the position, I was very happy. But when I got there, somehow they changed the position on me and I quit after a few weeks. And I was crying. I was bawling in tears in the elevator. I was bawling in tears thinking, how am I going to eat? How am I going to pay for my rent? I had spent $500 on a couch to put in the living room of my girlfriend so I can have a couch to sleep on. And and then at the time I was just figuring things out. I was sending money whenever I could to Haiti to my mother. And what am I going to do? So that day, I remember clearly, I am in tears. Like I am boo-boo crying, like, not knowing, my heart is just wrecked. And as I am in the elevator going down, the owner of the company that's on the first floor, because I was on the second floor, the owner of the company just so happened to be coming out of the door as I'm coming. And he would see me come all the time, and I would always say hello and go to the second floor and all of that. So he ran outside and he said, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And I explained to him that, this folks hired me and here's what happened. And he said, "Well, I have a receptionist position coming very soon. The young lady's leaving. I'm actually looking for someone, but in the meantime, I can hire you as a telemarketer." And I said, "Okay, now the telemarketing position was paid $6.25 an hour. $6.25 an hour, $15 per file that closes, and I had to make 100 calls. Now, understand something. I've only been in the US for 3 years. When I moved to the US, I didn't speak a word of English. I had to learn English. Okay. So now I'm going to sit down, make cold calls to individuals. So I accepted the job because I needed a job. And he said, "Okay, so it's on the weekends. There's another young lady that does it. She's going to train you." Okay, great. And he said, "Maybe in a month or two, you can become the receptionist of the office." He owned a mortgage company. So now I have all these mortgage leads that I have to cold calls. I'm not 17 yet, okay, at that point. So I go into the office. It so happened to be on a Sunday. I get trained and I get put down for me to start making calls. They gave me a list of 100. So I'm making calls. People are hanging up the phone on me, or, people are
I
yelling.
bet,
They're hanging up the phone.
yeah, I've been there.
Uh,
I know what
uh,
that's like.
they have beautiful languages that they talk in and telling me all sorts of things you can imagine.
Well, and anybody who's never sat down and done a telemarketing job probably has no idea about what we're talking
Woo!
about. But for those of you who have been in the telemarketing industry, who have gone through that, know exactly what we're
You
talking about.
know, right? So
Right.
imagine a 16-year-old and I'm like, okay. So and then but I needed another job because this was just for the weekend. So at that point, I go back to the agency thing. They put me to work at this company. They do home theaters for celebrities, right? Home theaters. And I remember getting the job, and after maybe 30 days of being with them, not even 3 weeks, they're like, we want you full time. We're going to call, would you take full-time job? Now, me, on the other hand, back then, they were offering me $15 an hour, and that was huge because back then you have LPN, licensed practical nurses, they were making about that much, right? So $15 was like a big deal an hour, and I'm making $6.25 as a telemarketer. So this is huge for someone who you're on your own. I have to pay for classes, I have to pay for bills, I have to send money back home, all of that. So the first thing I did, because I had given my word to the owner of the mortgage company, I said, hey, I'm calling, when is the job going to be available? Because I told the people that give me a second, I'll let you guys know, give me a few days what I decide. And I remember calling a few people that I knew, and they're like, why would you wait? Tell them, yes, this is amazing. But I had given him my word. So he said, Max, as a matter of fact, the young lady, instead of leaving in a few weeks, she's going to be leaving very soon. And I said to him, how much is the job going to pay? Well, $6.25 as a receptionist. And listen to this, because he opened the door for me when I was crying in the elevator, he allowed me to come and work for him as a telemarketer. I said yes, and I turned down the $15 an hour. Everyone I knew thought I had lost my mind. So now I go and I'm working for him for $6.25 an hour. And I'm also working for him on the weekend as a telemarketer. Nobody's talking to me at this point. You've lost your mind. You need a place. This is like, why would you turn down an opportunity like that? These people are doing home theaters for celebrities. This is a great opportunity. Why would you do that? There's a scale for you to move up in the company. But I had given him my word, and he gave me an opportunity to work. Well, guess what happened? As I'm working for him as a receptionist, then I became a processor, and I'm helping all these mortgage brokers. And then about maybe a few months in, I said, well, I want to become a broker. At that point, I'm already 17 and a half, maybe. I said, I want to be a broker. And he's laughing at me like, he's not taking me seriously, because this is the girl that can hardly speak English. This is the girl that is doing telemarketing, that's answering my phone, that's cleaning the floors, doing whatever needs to be done in the office. She's telling me she wants to be a mortgage broker. I go to mortgage school, and he's the teacher because he taught at a mortgage school. And I go to mortgage. I can even take the state exam because I'm not 18 yet. But I go to real estate school, finish the mortgage school, and he's still not taking me seriously. He's not budging in me becoming a broker in his office. And I kept learning. I kept assisting all the brokers. I was the first one there, the last one to leave. I treated that office like it was my own. And I remember one morning walking into the office, I said, where's everybody? And the office was empty. And he walked in and he said, today you're on the floor. Because a group of his top brokers got together, opened their own business.
Wow.
So when they say that opportunity meet preparation, that's what happened. So I was on the floor that day. I was on the floor. He said, okay, you got to wait a few months, but today you're on the floor. I'm pairing you with someone that's going to train you. I'm still going to need you to help in the office to answer the phones, but I'm going to let someone train you. And then by the time you turn 18, you can take the exam, you can become a broker. And that's how I started in the mortgage business, and eventually became one of his top producers, very young at 18. became one of his top producers. And then from there, I went to opening my own mortgage company at the age of 20 and just closing millions in loans every single month. So what happened?
I want to back up because there's two things that you said that I kind of want to spotlight.
Highlight.
And one was
Uh-huh.
when you had the opportunity to go to work for this home theater company, and then you had the opportunity to stay where you were at. I think sometimes in life, what happens is we all get to a point, the fork in the road, I guess would be the way to put it. And you
Mhm.
have opportunity to go right and you go left. But what I see in you when you describe why you took the road you did, it was because you had made a commitment to this gentleman who saw you, who gave you an opportunity when you were down,
Mhm.
when you just felt like probably one of the points where you were at your lowest, and he came up to you and he reached out his hand and said, "What's going on? I have something for you." And it shows a lot about the person you are because you gave your word to him, and at least you went back to him and you checked. So the fact that you went down that road is says a lot about you. The other thing that you said is he didn't believe that he didn't think you were serious about going after becoming a mortgage broker. But it goes back to often people do not see what we see within ourselves, what the vision that was given to us to pursue and to follow. So he didn't see in you what you saw in yourself and what that is what you wanted to become and what you wanted to do. But ultimately, you're given the opportunity, the chance to prove yourself.
Absolutely. I don't think he saw it. Um, he didn't see it for a long time. And simply because whenever I would ask him to become a broker, he would laugh because he's seeing someone who, he's seeing this young girl who was crying, who's, sleeping on her friend's floor, right? Um, who can hardly speak English. But I knew who I was, and I've known this at a very young age. And for me, I understood that your yes has to be yes and your no is no. And because I had given him my yes, and that is a principle that I learned as a little girl, right? We would get in trouble if we say yes to doing something and we don't do it. My father was very strict in that way, almost military like in that way. So your yes mean yes. And your word is all you have. I've learned that growing up. That's all you have. So for me, he had opened the door. He gave me the job just because someone else came with a shiny object that's shinier than what he was offering. Didn't matter to me. What mattered was the fact that I was going to call him and have a conversation with him and say, hey, I got an offer. Here's what they're offering me. And I did tell him that. But is the job available? Because I need a job right now. That's the reason why I went to work for a temp agency. So when his job would be available, it would be easy for me to just position myself and go work for him. But what happened when we are obedient, when we're not running after shiny object, when we're not running after somebody say something, it smells good, it sounds good, you're not um desperate, right? What desperation breed, it breeds destruction, it breeds disaster. I always tell people if you're making decision out of desperation, it will always come back to bite you. Although I was in that position where I had no one to call, although I was in a position where I was sleeping on a floor, I'm homeless, I'm taking the bus. I have to count pennies to even be able to afford to take the bus. I think it was a quarter of 50 cents. And some days I wouldn't have that. I would have to walk miles for hours from where I work to go home. Although I was in that position, there was a sense inside me that knew who I was. I wasn't desperate. So, which means people can come make me offers. I'm not desperate to follow to go after the shiny objects. And because of that posture, it was very easy for me to turn down that job and say no. And when he said yes and go to him, and because I was obedient and I stood on that word, then heaven opened. That's what I would call it. Heaven opened to someone who was 13 years old, was on a plane, afraid, had so just fear, right? A child, a 13-year-old child. If I had to speak to that 13-year-old girl today, I would tell her, you're going to be okay. I would tell her, you're on this plane, but you're not alone. You know, God is right there with you. That's what I would tell her. Um, so afraid, someone who faced so many different situations, right? Rejections, because the first family I went to stay with says, I'm not going to keep her, kept me for 30 days, sent me to somebody else, right? And then after my second family member left them at 16 and was on my own. So because I was obedient, the doors open. Not only I learned the business where I was a telemarketer, receptionist, to becoming a processor, to becoming a broker, to opening my own firm. Knowing the ins and out of the mortgage business allowed me to open my own firm. It allowed me to train. And with telemarketing, the fact that I was able to sit there and make all these calls and did it for so long, I went into sales. Then I was able to go into the radio, right? Where I had financial radio shows and health radio shows. And then from there, going to coaching, going to training, going to network marketing, and be able to teach people about sales, about, you know, every factor of selling in regards to how people act, what they say, why it's important to listen before you talk. I mean, the heart. And of course, let's not talk about to connect with people, because I'm one of them. In any situation, I am one of them. I have compassion. I can understand what people are facing. I can understand. I don't take it personal when somebody says no, when they're not ready, because I have been that person in those positions as well.
Yeah, and you say one thing, you were talking about connecting, and what I think is important for people to understand, for you, it was that one connection, that one communication, that one person who saw you and opened things up for you, and how important that is, because in today's society, we beat ourselves up so much, and we want to stop. We don't want to get up. We don't want to continue. But if we keep in mind the mentality and the faith that let's get up one more day, all it takes is one more connection, one more meeting, one more conversation that can completely change the direction of your life.
And also the decision as well. I think it's important for people to make a decision. One thing that I have to learn, not deciding, is making a decision as well, right? Um, Being very passive, you're also making a decision. You know, when you think of a diamond has to go through process of fire. So the realization of, now that the opportunity is open, the door is open, that the owner walked in that day and said, okay, today you're on the floor. I had gone through the fire, right? I had all these tests that I passed, all of them, whether it was sleeping on the floor, never complaining, being grateful for my friend, also being kind to her as I am in her house. When I left that couch that I purchased right there. Um, Whether it is sitting there, having the humility to learn and to serve in everyone, going around cleaning people's desk, and just learning from them, assisting them, um, the humility to learn and to grow. One of the sayings that I love is that no man is an island, right? all of us, until our last breath, we're always going to learn. We're always going to grow. There's always going to be room for us to just expand within, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, physically, to just learn and to grow. And having that humility to learn, to understand that, okay, I need to learn from these people here in this office. And the fact that I allowed myself to do that, what happened is that when it came to closing deals, when it came to dealing with clients, I just put everything together into a new framework for myself in the mortgage business, right? So I accepted the process. I accepted going to the fire. I never said, why me? I always say, why not me? Because I truly believe that when God knitted us together, when He put all of us together, He has already put in us everything that is required for us to go through that very moment we are facing right now. And the lie is our mindset, right? That's telling us, you're not going to get through it. This is going to kill you. You know, for some people, it's even that, oh my God, I'm going to die. Oh my God, this is going
Exactly.
to,
Yes.
this is going to kill you. You're not going to get through it. This is hard or whatever it is. And for me, I knew that I can do this. I am made for this. And now that I've grown, I know that there's a word that backs this up, that I can do all things through Christ who empowers me within. It didn't say some things, it says all things. And I want people to understand all things, everything that you're facing right now. So when I went in, I didn't go because of the money. I went in because of service. I went in because I gave my word. I went in because I was hungry to learn. And I encountered a man who was one of the reps of the banks. And he said to me, Maxandra, I see you're stressing. I see that you are worried. I think the best thing for you to do is for now, really focus, become a mortgage broker, build your portfolio of clients. You can earn six figures and then you can always go back to school later. He gave me that advice. And he was the same person that says, let's go to motivational training. He was the same person that started introducing me to that. And I was surrounded by people who were making six figures, seven figures, five figures, you know, going into law school in our mortgage brokers, doing real estate, all those things. And at a 16, 17, 18-year-old, I was the youngest there. Everybody else was 2, 3, 4, 5 times my age, right?
Hmm.
So I learn from them. I humble myself and serve them and learn from them. And because of that, I got out of homelessness. Because of that, I was able to transfer everything that God has taught me for me to transfer it to others. And He has brought me thus far, which is how you and I cross paths as well. Isn't
Right.
that something?
It's amazing. And, a lot of people would see, yeah, at 21 years old, you have this multi-million dollar mortgage brokerage company, and they
Mhm.
would say, well, she's got it made. What else could she possibly want in life? But you saw that you mentioned it, you were a servant. You wanted to serve, you wanted to see others grow. And you've done so much now with the business that you're in now. And a lot of that is, you put kingdom first before money. And I think a lot of people have seen that and heard that through our interview. Have you ever encountered clients who maybe don't maybe share the same faith as you when they're coming to you? And how do you deal with that?
Oh, that's perfectly fine. I deal with that because I get it. I understand. I understand in a way that I haven't been always been this person right here. My relationship with Christ um haven't always been like it is today, and it's gonna continue to grow. So for me, we don't have to have the same faith. We don't. And my goal is always to love others, right? So it's so important for us to understand that we love God, that's first. We love ourselves and we love others as we love ourselves. But what I have found is it's very hard to love others as you love yourself when you do not love yourself. And a lot of people are walking around, we're talking about self love a lot nowadays, where everything is reflected me, instead of service, instead of loving our neighbors, right? And the way to loving yourself is to love God, to know that you have a creator. And then from there, you love yourself and you love others. So the reason why it is very simple, very easy for me to love whether someone is a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you don't believe in God, you're an atheist. It really doesn't matter. I mean, I encounter all kind of people. I have coached people who don't believe, and it's okay. But do I love them? I absolutely love them. I absolutely love them because at my worst, with my faith, God loved me. At my worst, He loved me. So who am I to judge someone else to say, well, you are not holy enough to come here and talk to me because I'm not holy? Because if not, if in my faith is Christ died for me, well, if he died for me, then he died for me for a reason. It's because I'm a sinner. We all are. He died for all of us, not just for me. So for me, it is always about loving others. It is always about meeting them where they are and meeting them where they are and allowing God to do for them what He's done for me and even more what He wants to do for them. And I am just a little speck in that. If He can use me to bring light into their lives, then wow, what a privilege it is for me to be able to do that. If He can use me to share my story with someone and it's going to touch their life, and that person is Muslim, that person is atheist, that person is whatever religion or whatever belief they are, that person is on drugs, that person is whatever, doing whatever it is, that person is homeless. If He can use me to share my story and it's going to bring light into their lives, then it is truly a privilege for me. So
Yeah.
that's how I deal with it. And that's the reason why I'm open, that I meet people from all walk of life. That's why I can be on stage speaking and connect with so many people. I'm sure you've seen me speak before in the past, and stay and wait and talk to everybody and be able to connect with everyone, whatever race, whatever belief, whatever. I mean, my job is to love. It really is. And that is my prayer. It is to love. That is my prayer for all of us to really come together and understand that we're all in the same boat. So it is a privilege for me to sit here with you, to share my story with you, and to see as you're rising, as you're inspiring others to walk into their God-given gift. It is a privilege for us to get to do that.
Yeah, and we had the privilege of getting to know and meet the late David Gilmour, who was the original founder
Mhm.
of Fiji Water. And one of the most important things that I got in listening to him speak on stage and talking to him in person was the fact that nothing else mattered unless you had your health. And and a lot of that is not just physical health, it's mental health and it's spiritual health as well. How important is it for all three, for an individual to have all three of those things working together in their lives?
You know, After I opened my mortgage company, I worked around the clock. and I had three cars parked. Three. Three luxurious cars parked. Literally, I would go down to my garage and say, which one do I drive today? But one of the things was that I was tired. I was drained. I was miserable because I was feeding myself physically, that young girl who needed to survive. I worked myself to death and I went after all these things, but these things weren't filling me at all. I was empty. So it got to a point where I walked away from everything. I walked away from everything. I closed my mortgage company down, and everybody said I was crazy because I had built it for so long. I've been in the mortgage business for so long. I could close deals in my sleep, right? Literally. And that's because emotionally I wasn't feeding myself. Spiritually, I was bankrupt. Emotionally, I was bankrupt. And it became physically where I was bankrupt as well because I was giving to everybody else and not giving to myself. Because for a lot of people, there are a lot of people that are in that position right now, whether they are caregivers or mothers, father, they just give. They give and give and give and give and give. And they don't understand why it's so important to fill up their cup. And if you ask me now, what I will tell you, I think the number one thing is to take care of yourself spiritually first. You know, we are a spirit and a body, not the other way around. So spiritually first. So it's spirit, soul, and body. You fill up your spirit, you fill up your cup, you take care of that, your emotional health, your mindset, because your mindset is everything. Those limiting beliefs will keep you limited, will keep you broken, will keep you in a space where God has not called you to be. And then, of course, to feed yourself and take care of your body. Because a lot of times, because people have given up their body, the spirit cannot embody inside that body. So they let go. You have to die because your body gives up. So when you ask the question how important it is, I have been there where I closed the business down and said, okay, I have to go right back to the foundation and rebuild this the right way. And I do have a kingdom first mentality because I see so many people right now, whether it's through any type of addiction, whether it's food, whether it's sex, whether it's drugs or gambling or whatever it is, addiction that people have, whether it's gossip, right? Whether it's gossip, some people, they can't help themselves, talk all day long. They're addicted to just gossiping. They're addicted to eating. They're addicted to drinking. They're addicted to alcohol, to drugs, to porn, to all of that. That is your spirit telling you, feed me. Spiritually, something is missing. And what's missing is that to be created with your creator, to be connected with your creator. So as long as you keep ignoring that pattern that keeps trying to wake you up, I'm here. I'm just waiting for you to call upon me. You know, I made you in my image. I want to connect with you. You're going to find everything else to fill up the holes. The money won't fill it. The cars won't fill it. Yes, having money, paying your bills on time, give you peace of mind, you know, but a lot of people, we've known a lot of people with a lot of money that are not with us anymore. It's because there is something that's missing. So you cannot neglect your mindset. You cannot neglect the fact that you have all these fears and you have all those the traumas from childhood that you've never dealt with. You cannot neglect the fact that you're always holding your breath. You have worry, you have anxiety. You cannot neglect the fact that spiritually you're not connecting with your creator, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through meditation. You cannot neglect your body where you're taking care of everybody else, but you can't go for a walk. You're not exercising. You're not watching what you eat, what you're putting in your mouth because the body's a temple. So it is important to connect everything together, because when you connect everything together, then everything will start falling into place.
When you went back to, like you said, and I think you see it in a lot of people, a lot of celebrities have done the same thing. They've gotten so far away from who they were that they actually stepped out of the spotlight so they could go back home and reconnect to who they really were at the beginning. So when you were going through all of this, is this where you decided to start your own business now of what you do now? And for those who don't know, tell them what it is that you're doing now.
Um, I think it was a process. I've always had a coaching business, but before it was sales and training. Obviously, my background in the mortgage business, it was really focusing on financial sector, where realtors, mortgage brokers, anyone in the financial sector with life insurance, any type of sales like that. Um, and then, of course, I went into the network marketing industry, and you met me in that sector in the network marketing industry. And I led team in that industry. And what I realized with having top leaders and helping them achieve their goals, whether it's to earn six figures and earn five figures and helping people achieve their goals, is that, I spent a lot of time thinking about what they wanted to achieve more than what I wanted to achieve. So it brought me back to the basic of the mortgage business of service, right? Because in the network marketing industry, if it's about you, forget it. You're just, it's not going to last for a long time. Even if you build a large team, it will come back and bite you, because it really is about others. So being in that sector, I saw a lot, and some things I agreed with and a whole lot I didn't agree with. So it was important for me to step back, to go back to the kingdom mentality, to go back to not um, the new age things that we talk about in regards to self. Me. I'm going to do this. And it's me, and it's me, and it's me, and it's me. And we're seeing a lot of that. Although, as human being, a part of us, we need to take action. But it is very important to realize, how can I be of service to others? And also filling up your cup, like we just talked about, spiritually, emotionally, physically. So I stepped back for years, because I am a big believer in all my training and my speaking at looking at the person in the mirror, right? At looking at the person in the mirror. And then I sat down with the top leaders that I had. What I realized is that a lot of the people who, whether they were having success, having difficulty, it wasn't because they didn't know what to do. The things that were holding them back were things that they have put under the rug over the years. It's trauma, it's character issue, it's their yes is not yes, and no, it's integrity issue, right? It's heart issue, where their heart is. It's things that they're holding on, unforgiveness, a lot of it. So automatically, I'm dealing with someone, let's say, who has a lot of unforgiveness going on. So they are dealing with a lot of rejection. They reject themselves. Others have rejected them. So in the network marketing industry, the moment that person, or any type of sales, not just network marketing, any type of business, or even anyone at a job, the moment they hear no, the moment someone reject them, it brings them back to all these experiences, right? It brings them back. And then self-doubt gets in as well. I'm not good enough, or I'm unworthy, or what's good. So I realized that, I'm dealing with a whole lot here. It's not just we have limiting beliefs. There's a lot going on. As I paid attention to leaders, paid attention to myself. So it was very important. So I spent a good 7, 8 years really working on that framework, and deciding to not just offer sales training or in the business sector, but to really design a firm that welcomes everyone, where it is not just coaching. My coaching program is designed individually per person. A lot of times you'll have, people have these things that you must follow, and they'll have a framework that works for everybody. But for me, it is individually because everyone is different. Everyone is different. So every program that I have is designed, especially my VIP one-on-one coaching, it is designed personally for each individual. And even in my group coaching sector, because I have a group coaching program, I get to know everyone get at least one-on-one with me. So I know exactly the things that we need to tackle. So that's the reason why I took that time to really delve into how I wanted to show up in the world, what my mission was. And my mission is for people to be whole. My mission is for people to be whole spiritually, mentally, and physically, and for them to walk in their true identity of what God says they are, not what people, not what the world, not what their parents, of who they are, to walk in that. And what I find, once people step into that, then they're able to just go anywhere and do anything with anybody, because their light is shining bright and they can really give that love back to others from within.
You know, I know there's so much we could go on to this. This has been
I
such an
know it's a lot.
enlightening interview.
It's a lot.
But I want to kind of, maybe as we get ready to wrap things up, I want to dial this down to that one person right now who is listening to this right now, who has just, maybe it's the single parent, the single mom, the single dad. They woke up this morning, they're getting their kids ready for school. They're looking at, they're trying to make sure that they have food for their kids for lunch, and they're just overwhelmed. What would you say to those people right now that are just looking for that little spark, that little something that's going to ignite them and get them going in a more positive, uplifting direction?
I would say, first of all, the problem is not bigger than you. It is not bigger than God. Because a lot of times we look at our problems, it's just so big that it's very difficult for us to get the answer or the solution that we have right in front of us, because the anxiety kicks in and the problem is very big. Also, I think it's important for us to step out and to take it step by step and day by day. Oftentimes, we have an image of what we want life to be. It could be the parent who would love to be able to sit down and feed their children, but whatever you have in the cupboard, make the most of it. Because I've been there. I have been there for 30 days eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, literally, for over a month. That's all I could eat, right? I have been there thinking, okay, I'm eating my last meal. I don't have anything for tomorrow. And one of the verses that I love is that God says that, look at the birds and of the sky. They don't have to worry about getting fed. I feed them. Wouldn't I take care of you? And I'm just paraphrasing, right? Wouldn't I take care of you? So we have to really understand that what is it that you have is what you have right now. And all that you can do it with where you are, with what you have. And especially if you're dealing with kids, sometimes you think, oh my God, I only have this little bit to give them. As parents, you're thinking they're going to look at me a certain way. Kids just want love. They want you present. They want your attention. Everything can turn into an adventure of rice and black beans today, of peanut butter
We've
and
all been
jelly.
there.
We've all
Yes,
been there.
we
But
definitely.
no, what I want to remind them in that moment is to really sit still. I know what I'm going to say. It's hard. I have been to it, right? I know what I'm going to say. It's hard. Take deep breath. Take deep breath. Do not hold your breath. Do not and the reason why I'm telling you to take deep breath is for you to get back into yourself in order for you to have solution and not be reactive, right? Because a lot of times we're just get so emotional in the situation, and we sometimes have answers right in front of us that we cannot think clearly because we have so much anxiety and we're worried so much. Step back away from the situation. And the only way you're going to do that, take deep breath, get back within yourself. Think about where you've been, so many hurdles that you've been able to get to this far is because you've gone through it. Whatever it is that you're facing right now, you will get through it again. It is not over. It's not.
And I think the other part to that too is because I think we've all been there, and that is to not be afraid to reach out for
And
help
ask for
when
help.
you need it.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Because a lot of times, let's talk about also the isolation. One of the things that I realize is that the enemy will isolate you where you make the problem so big that you cannot reach out to anyone else. You would not reach out to anyone else, or you feel shame. You feel shame. If I reach out, what is that person going to think of me? Or what is this? Ask for help. Open your mouth and ask for help, and say, I need help. And in asking for help, you don't have to explain what you're going through in details. You're simply saying, I need help. Can you help me with this? And it's a yes or a no. And even if that person says no, ask somebody else and ask somebody else until you're able to get help. Don't stay isolated, even if to just text someone and say, keep me in your prayers.
That's
Don't do it alone.
sometimes that's just what you need is that prayer. Again,
Mhm.
this has been so awesome, Maxandra. Real quick, we've talked about it, but how can people connect with you and find out more about your program and what you offer?
It's been a pleasure to be with you here. Maxandra.com, which is Maxandra, Maxandra.com. You can send me an email at info@maxandra.com. Everything is right there on my website, maxandra.com. You go to services, you see all of my services. You can shoot us an email on the site. And, you can follow me, Maxandra Desrosiers, on, no, Maximize Life maximize life with Max on Instagram, and then follow our ministry pages. If you're someone who's looking for prayer, if you're someone who really need that support, you can follow our group online at All Eyes on God. All eyes with a Z at the end, All Eyes on God, because through it all, through everything that we talk about, through my firm of coaching, all of that, but some people just want prayer. Some people want that support. And I am there for you through my ministry as well.
All right. Well, as we wrap things up, I'll give the final words to you. Any final words of encouragement?
Yeah, exactly where you are, you're meant to be. And we live in a world that says you're too old, you're too young, you miss your mark, and you miss the opportunities. because you missed the opportunities. They only came once or twice. It's not going to happen again. And I'm here to tell you that is not true. God is a perfect God. He is a just God. He knows exactly where you are. He knows your heart. He knows your desires. He knows your prayers. And that's why it's so important for you to take that deep breath and realize that there's lesson for you to learn and where you are right now. And nothing that's meant for you, you've missed. So don't live with that rush, with that anxiety that I didn't do it right. I didn't do it that way. Therefore, I didn't take that opportunity. Therefore, I missed my mark. Whatever is for you, it is for you. God is a perfect God. He knew exactly that at that moment, that's where you were going to be. So therefore, keep going. Take it day by day. And remember that you are perfectly made in Him. So trust in that.
All right. Well, again, Maxandra, thank you very much for joining me. It has been a pleasure. It's good to see you again after all these years. Continued blessings on you and all the lives that you're touching through your endeavors and through your programs. And if there's anything that you've got of value out of this, please be sure to drop it in the comments below. We'll make sure you have all of the contact information for Maxandra. And until next time, I'm Deston Rogers. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, thank you for tuning in to Eagle Freedom Presents Rise, Inspire, and Overcome.
To learn more about our mission and become a part of #Rio Movement, visit eaglefreedompresents.com. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs a beacon of hope. If you know someone who has an amazing story of overcoming, send us an email to eaglefreedompresents@gmail.com. And remember our mantra, rise, inspire, overcome.